Hello, everyone. My name is Melody Campos, and this is my ethical analysis presentation. Today, I will be presenting my ethical analysis of cheating Atlanta school scandal. To give you a quick overview, this presentation will explore the moral dilemma that these people faced, the stakeholders that were involved, and the ethical principles in conflict and possible solutions from different ethical perspectives. I'll also share my own opinion and what I would advise as an ethical consultant. Thank you. To begin, elements of the dilemma. This case examines how a teacher, Demaney Lewis, and other educators at Parks Middle School in Atlanta faced intense pressure to meet high testing standards. Instead of accepting failure, they chose to alter students' test scores. The central dilemma in this case revolves around pressure and fear. Teachers were told that if their students didn't meet specific passing rates on state tests, the school would be shut down. For many of these students, Parks Middle School was a safe place in a rough neighborhood. Demaney Lewis, who was a young math teacher who truly cared for his students, believed that if the school was closed, his students would be bused across town and lose the community they depended on. When his principal suggested changing a few test answers to help them pass, Mr. Lewis eventually gave in. The ethical conflict here is whether doing something wrong, like falsifying these test scores, could ever be justified if it's done to help others. This is what makes this such a strong moral dilemma. Background of the case. The larger system behind this case also matters. Superintendent Beverly Hall led Atlanta public schools using a business moral, meaning schools have to meet performance targets or face penalties. Teachers' jobs and reputations depended directly on test scores. The high stakes system created a culture of fear. Schools that failed were schools that failed were restricted or closed, and teachers were replaced. In this environment, cheating became more common, not just at Parks Middle Schools, but at 44 schools citywide. By 2010, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation discovered widespread cheating. Over 100 educators were disciplined or even fired. What began as an attempt to help students eventually turned into one of the biggest education scandals in U.S. history. Stakeholders. Okay, in any ethical analysis, we must identify the different stakeholders in the situation. Those that were directly and indirectly affected by the decision. The students are at the center. They were denied an honest measure of their progress, which can hurt their education long term. The teachers, including Mr. Lewis, risked their integrity, careers, and even risk criminal charges. Administrators face pressure to keep the schools open and meet district goals. The parents and community. The parents and community wanted the schools to remain a safe place and a supportive place for their children. And lastly, the public education system and the public's trust in general in that system suffered when the scandal became very public. Every stakeholder in this situation experienced harm in different ways to different intensities. The moral principles in conflict. The moral principles in conflict are powerful. On one side, there's honesty and integrity, core ethical values in both education and society. On the other side, there's loyalty and compassion for all of these different students. Demaney Lewis believed he was protecting his students from harm, but he violated truth and fairness. He chose the short term benefit of helping his students over the long term value of honesty. The question now becomes, can loyalty to your community justify dishonesty? Should a good teacher ever break the rules to save students from a broken system? The tension between principles is what makes this case so challenging. Ethical vocabulary and thought experiment. This case also involves key ethical vocabulary, moral myopia, a kind of ethical blindness. When people focus so much on goals or pressures, they stop seeing their actions as wrong. Rationalization is how people convince themselves they're doing the right thing even when they know it's unethical. To understand the dilemma, imagine this scenario. If your school or job were in danger and the only way to save it was to break the rules, would you do it? Many people, like Mr. Lewis, thought they were protecting the students, but more myopia prevented them from seeing how their actions harmed others and eventually destroyed the trust that was ultimately built. Now, my ethical theory number one, utilitarianism, which focuses on outcomes, doing whatever produces the greatest happiness for the most people. In the short term, Mr. Lewis' actions made students and teachers feel proud, and the school avoided closure. That seems like a greater good. However, from a broader view, the harm outweighed the benefits. Students were given a false sense of achievement, the integrity of the education system was damaged, and future opportunities for honest learning were just lost. A utilitarian might conclude that while the intent was positive, the overall result caused more harm than good, making the cheating just unethical. Ethical theory number two, deontology. Deontology focuses on the morality of actions themselves rather than outcomes. According to this view, some actions are simply wrong. For example, lying, stealing, cheating, no matter what good might even come from them. Mr. Lewis had a duty to be honest as a teacher. By changing scores, he used students as a mean to an end, keeping the school open. A denatologist would say that this violated both his moral and professional duties, regardless of his intentions or not. Even if his intentions were good, it's still a violation. Now, my personal opinion. In my personal opinion, cheating is never ethically justifiable, even if it's done out of care or compassion. Mr. Lewis's intentions were good, but the method was ultimately wrong. A better approach would have been to bring attention to the impossible expectations set by the district itself, or seeking additional support, tutoring for students, and just advocating for reform. The real success should come from genuine learning and not from these falsified numbers that these teachers created. When integrity is lost, even good intentions cannot make an unethical action right. Advise as an ethical consultant. As an ethical consultant, my advice would begin with acknowledging the system's role, what the system had to play in this whole dilemma. When institutions create fear based environments, ethical violations become more likely. First, schools should foster open communication so that teachers can discuss pressures honestly without fear of punishment, because fear is what also began this whole situation. Second, ethical training should be part of teacher development. Educators need tools to handle ethical stress. Third, success metrics should go beyond standardized tests, looking at student growth, engagement, and their overall well being. And lastly, schools should protect those who report unethical practices. Building an ethical culture means creating safety for honesty. Conclusion. In conclusion, the Atlanta scandal shows how good people can make bad choices when they're severely under pressure. It reminds us that ethics often damages courage, which is to stand up for honesty even when failure seems easier. True education is about learning, growth, and integrity. The right path is rarely the easiest one, but it is the only one that builds real trust and long term success. References. And lastly, of course, here are my sources. This includes the Ethics Unwrapped case and just several different major news outlets that reported on this scandal. These sources did help me understand about the ethical theories and the human impact behind this whole dilemma. And now, thank you for watching my presentation, and I hope I was able to provide a good overview on this whole scandal. Thank you, and have a good day.